face the camera.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
How are you?
Good, thanks. Hello.
The world has changed so much since we first learned about Snowpiercer through the film. I was just wondering, like, how you approach this. And, like, if you feel like this is an urgent story to tell now, like just the way class structure and, you know, the environment, like all these important topics.
I feel like it's exploring, it's exploring things that are on our minds today, that are on my mind, in terms of climate. The story starts shortly after a catastrophic climate event. So climate issues are something that are very much on my mind. Also, the political environment, the questions that are being raised in the show, I feel reflect questions that we're asking ourselves now in terms of how to run a just society, democracy, how democracy works, where it doesn't work, themes of social justice or injustice. I think a lot of those things that are in the current media are reflected in the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know how much the world has changed so much as we are more aware of what's going on. But like climate science, the scientists were predicting these exact outcomes in the 40s. You know what I'm saying? We've just been ignoring it systematically for that long. So Snowpiercer is a logical extension of what happens when you continue to ignore science and you're forced to make a rash decision about how to save your planet, right? And so I think, I think it is particularly pertinent because more of us are thinking about these things than we were before, because the nature of the way information travels, we're all capable of learning so much more than you were before. You can directly connect to an expert in a way that you couldn't before. And the same is true of our politics. Is that, we are, I think, more engaged in talking about how we should be governed, I think, at least than I have noticed in my lifetime. So it's, I think, it's a good time for the show because we are, as a culture, talking about the things that the show is.
And along those lines, climate anxiety is actually is a very big thing right now. It's a very real thing for a lot of people. Is that something that informed your performances in this? Just a sense of the immediacy of what's happening and the way that people are addressing it?
For me, I think it informed a kind of sadness that exists for everybody on this train. It's actually a story about what happens after it's too late. And so all of the things that we've lost by the time this show starts, and all of the ways that could have been avoided, even over the course of our lifetimes, the thing that everybody on the train is carrying with them. How many family members did you let die because of your addiction to fossil fuels? You know what I'm saying? Like that's crazy to be able to see cause and effect like that in your lifetime.
I think for me, once I'm involved in a project, like the stakes that exist for a character are the stakes that I'm playing, and whatever that character's world is, I sort of put myself into that, try and really live in that character's perspective and world. So it doesn't increase the stakes for me if I happen to. I think it more influences whether I'm interested in a project or not. You know what I mean? Whether the material is interesting to me and I want to spend time thinking about it and working on it. But then once I'm involved in a project, whatever is important to that character, that's what's really important to me. Do you know what I mean? If I'm inhabiting her world.
Jennifer, quick question. You've been in a lot of comic book and fantasy movies that are pretty obvious. They're hopeful and upbeat and volunteer. This movie here is so bleak. But is there heroic elements? Is there hope in this movie, or is it just a show? I mean, down. Do you see it and go, no, this is actually positive?
Well, they're all survivors. I mean, they're all living. I mean, there was this climate event, but they're all still alive, and they're all moving forward. And it's all about how do we make it through and come out the other side, and what will that society look like, and what do we learn, and how do we live in a way, how can we be the best versions of ourselves? So I think there absolutely is hope. It is about survivors and surviving.
What was it like preparing for a role where your character has a more the end justifies the means style of morality? So using a totalitarian sense of ethics versus the typical sense of doing what's right now. What was it like preparing for it? It's a bit of a darker take on thinking you're right, no matter how dark or dirty your hands have to get.
Well, I think it's not that black and white, and I think that all of the characters, in this, all the characters on this train are challenged, and people have different ideas about my character. They like her, they don't like her, they agree with her, they don't agree with her. I think the same applies for many of the characters on the train. I personally, I believe that she is fighting for what she thinks is right. And I think that the way in which she goes about that is challenge. And I think it's really interesting how she responds to that challenge. I think all of the characters are forced to look at their methods and the way that they're living and are asked to consider change and consider whether it's the best way or the right way. And I think it's really interesting what happens with her in the course of the show when she's challenged in that way.
How much of their backstories will we get before they get to this situation they're in now, 7 years after the climate change? Do we get a little insight of who they were before to who they are now in the series?
You do.
It's meted out in I think a pretty cool way. Yeah, you end up, we spend a lot of time with these people. There's also a ton of characters we're following, So I think it feels like, from a writer's perspective, that's a tall order, but I think it does a pretty admirable job of, if you go through the whole ride, you will learn a lot about everyone.
One last question. Obviously, the overarching storyline is the apocalyptic feel, but there's also the murder mystery aspect of it, which is what your character gets called into play. What was it like doing that subplot with the overarching story? For the kind of nerd I happen to be, like my two favorite shows of all time are Poirot and Columbo. So to get to play a detective for a little bit was like, it was a real hook for me when I was asked if I want to do this show. I was a detective. Yeah, I'd like to do that. But I think it serves as a real good. It's a good reason. It's an interesting reason for the events that are set off because of this murder, because there is a reason to give Leighton more access than any other tailie ever before, because they need him to do a job, and so it immediately sets up this question of who's in power, who's in control of the situation, how can you manipulate things, and so having something as visceral and necessary to solve as a murder, right, in this confined situation too, because you can't have too many murders when there are only this many people, right? So there's a good urgency to it, and it provides, I think, a good reason to get Leighton around the train.
Was the set claustrophobic at all? Did that help?
Well, the set is, it's built it's 1,001 cars long, so it's in sections, and the sections are in different stages. I actually found it was actually very relaxed.
Yeah.
There were many cars and many sets. I perpetually got lost. I was always turned around, and there is so much. There's so much diversity in terms of the design. The design is so rich of the trains, of the cars rather, that it felt more expansive. To me, it felt more expansive than I had anticipated. That said, they're realistically small, which is great. They should be, but somehow they managed to fit a lot into those cars, into that space. And of course, they're made in a way that's super clever and allows them to still film them and put cameras wherever they need to put cameras. So when filming, it doesn't go quite as cramped as you might think.
Guys, that's all we have. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I gotta ask, you played Simon, total a-hole, but a survivor, and I heard you up there talking in the panel, and the new character you're gonna play is in the back, and you said he rubs people the wrong way, but he does what he has to do. When you play a character like that, in your mind, are you thinking, no, my guy's the hero of his own story? He's going to do what he has to do to survive, whether the audience likes it or not. I'm not a jerk. I'm not a villain. I'm a hero.
It's interesting. No, I never think of that.
No.
I mean, my only, like, a lot of these characters are actually, when people ask, like, I'm seeing a through line with these characters. Well, because it's, I mean, Walking Dead, Westworld, now this one, even the video game.
Yeah.
The thing is because they were all such large worlds, I don't have a full season of scripts. As an actor, I'm given
What you got
the episode.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So, this is what I'm doing in this episode. Well, I don't know if I'm even in these other episodes. So what can I do as an actor that, obviously you start with the words, and here's the words, this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm doing. But how can I compare it to like a Dagwood sandwich, essentially a character.
You build it.
You want to, the audience, you want people to bite into it and wow, taste a bunch of stuff and not necessarily know exactly what each layer is, but I want to provide essentially producers and writers with as many opportunities to take this character into different ways. So that's sort of I'm never thinking about he's a hero or he's a jerk. I'm just thinking like, how can you sort of provide this big Dagwood sandwich or a buffet, and then you just hope that what happens further down the line fits? Because, like with Simon, I was concerned with some of the direction I was going, as if at the end he was a truly horrible human being, or a pedophile, someone that I just fucking would want to kill. I'm not interested in necessarily portraying an evil character is charming. I don't fucking care. I don't need people to like me, my character. I would rather portray pure evil. And as my job, that's my character. Right. Just a piece of shit. So that's the one bad thing, is like when you do these kind of things, it's like, oh shit, I hope I'm not.
Yeah. People give you a look at the grocery store like, what an asshole.
Well, I just hope that the payoff is such that it's not like, oh, he was really evil, but I really liked him, if he was just pure evil. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm not doing it for some sort of validation or to be liked. So I think that's the short answer. Should I give the long answer now?
Yeah.
So, the long.
I've got a lot of psychological problems, and I work them out.
I wanted to ask, this sounds like a really complex production and a lot of different moving parts. I wanted to ask Lena, what attracted you, what was fascinating about you to take on this particular...
I'd like to answer that one, please.
He is a jerk.
Just sit back, relax. You don't have to do anything.
You know, honestly, I love the world of Snowpiercer. I booked the show ages ago, the original pilot that we filmed. I was playing a different character, and then when Graeme came on board, they did some research about who I was and what my career was, and then they wrote the character for me. So I got the lucky thing in that I don't have to slot into a character. Now something has been written for me, and takes the best of what I do and puts it into one. So this world, I read the graphic novels and I saw the movie, and I really love that. I love the world on the train. I love the things that you don't think about, like that the graphic novel had talked about with the first one, where there's a disease from the back of the train that just takes up the whole train because he comes up and it's like everybody's dead. You know, like I think that's just so fascinating when you have something that is such an isolated world. Like, what do you do when you introduce this one thing into this new part of the world? So when the tailies come up, you know, we don't know them because I'm in the center of the train. I run the night car, and I'm essential to the world, not because it's a brothel really anymore, but it has been changed into this place where people come. It's almost like a therapist office. I'm like the empath. I help people get off the train mentally. I help people deal with their past and with all the people they left behind and the death of the old world, right, and bring them into the new world. And with that, I don't know the tailies, and nobody really knows the tailies. So it's kind of that new discovery of all these people that have been on the train who we had no idea that we knew they existed, but we didn't know who they really were. So I think, I think that the world is and really cool. I think, I don't know if you've read the novels, but they like, there's this bunk, the place with all the radiation and the weird babies. So cool, so dark. I love dark.
Radiation and babies.
Love that. Yeah, I know.
That's a 1-2 punch.
It's so dark, and
I'm hungry.
That's what I love. There's so much to learn just from the characters on the train, on our train, which is 1,001 cars long. Yeah. But the way that the graphic novels have set up the world outside, whether they're going to use it or not, there's so much to explore. So this could go on forever and ever and ever. This could go on forever.
Well, expanding on your character, first off, by the way, your outfit's fantastic.
Thank you.
Love it.
Oh my God, did you know that this, so it's Private Policy, and they are huge fans of Snowpiercer, and they designed a clothing line based on Snowpiercer.
Oh my
and
God.
this is one of the pieces.
Nice.
No idea, yeah.
Where are they based?
New York. Yeah.
I had to buy my shit.
I love that you
Are you
paired it with
stealing wardrobe from the set?
Yeah.
But expanding on your character goes from obviously offering one type of service to get people's mind off of things to offering a very different but very similar service to get their minds off of things. What was it like evolving the character in that, and from what she was to what she is?
I think she always was this way, always had a connection to people, and was always able to, get them to open up in a way to her. So I think she always knew she had this ability, this kind of power. It's almost like a psychic power, or a way. It's truly an empath, where they can completely empathize with you to a point where you'll open up and you'll tell them anything and give to that person all the emotional baggage that you have, and then feel a lot better because you're able to give some of the burden and the weight to someone else. So I think she always had that in her, but her original, the way the train was originally supposed to be wasn't supposed to be an arc, right? It was supposed to be a luxury liner, and she was there for entertainment, and she was there to run the brothel. And so, when the freeze happened and it became an arc, then she had to find a higher calling, and find a bigger purpose to being there.
Well, one of the things that's so interesting about this is it's looking at, the world that your characters inhabit. Earth is already irrevocably broken. Mm-hmm. We're living in a time right now where we were sort of watching it happen in slow motion and, trying to stop it by any means necessary, hopefully. So in the situation that your characters are in, is there still room for hope? And how much does that play a role in your motivations for what your characters are doing?
Well, I think if you don't have hope, you're going to kill yourself. So, I think hope is inherent just through living, continuing on, and the struggle to do such. Yeah, it's funny. I never thought about that so much. That idea of hope. I think again, unless if you're waking up every day, that just inherently means you're living with hope, which they continue to do. As in, if your character is written to be someone who's still alive, that means he chooses to live. Interesting though to think about if there's hope for the world.
So I guess it's a two-part question. You know, is there like what is the personal hope that might drive your character, and is there some sort of larger sense of hope for humanity writ large?
Yeah, I think Miss Audrey hopes that that eventually the world will right itself and we'll be able to live on Earth again, right, and not in a train. But that it's that fight for survival. It's that instinct to survive and to live that these people have very strongly. So if anything goes wrong, it's still scary. You know, you may think that, well, I will die before I will ever see the world go back to normal. But I don't want to die now. So the train rumbling and like things happening and possibly like just like it all falling apart and killing me right now. It's not what I want. I want to at least, you know, die a normal like and having lived, you know, and pass along what I know and hope that the next generation maybe they'll see the change. Maybe they'll see, you know, maybe they'll be able to go there.
Be curious if the hope changes from the tale, because I think the hope in the tale, I mean, now that's going to start coming up, of like, you know, I think in the tale the hope is really to maybe have some real food, to get better that way, whereas if you're in the first class, is the hope for the outside world.
To keep what you got and make sure no one takes it from you.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I
would imagine it would differ in the train because the tale you're surviving.
You need different things as you move forward.
Yeah.
Is that the popularity? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's like interesting because you start to like think about it.
Big question.
Yeah, I would imagine that the first class are the people who really want the world to go back to normal so they can get, you know, back out there and have their land and, you know, rebuild what they want the society to be and not be trapped, even though they have the luxury, they still are trapped. You know, we're there just like hoping for food and hoping for a kind word and warmth. You know, and then,
I was going to say, do you think the popularity of what this show is going to be, and Walking Dead and all that, is that a reflection of pop culture? Is people, the viewers, are frustrated with the world we live in, and they watch this, and they go, you know, it's bad, look how bad it's going to be, but maybe there is hope. I mean, do you look at your show as a positive thing at the end of the day, or just you give up?
I want to say this is going to have to be our last question, unfortunately.
No, I'm just saying, is it just a reflection of society where we live now, where everyone's just like so depressed about how
there's a lot of
icebergs are melting? It's like, dude, this is we're fun.
I don't think the show, I don't know if Graeme is necessarily creating a show to solve the world's problems.
Right.
They're just, you know, this is all reflective of things that are going on.
Yeah.
Like I've said before, man versus man, man versus nature, that's been going on for fucking ever. It will continue to go on.
Right. Yeah.
Our Earth has been going down the toilet for a long time, and it's a planet. It's finite. It's the population. There's too many people. So, you know, again, you can infer and compare and do whatever, but again, there's a TV show.
I know.
Yeah, it's a TV show.
Yeah, but it's popular. That's what I'm saying. If it was, nobody cares, but it's tapping into something that the viewer wants to see.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a part of it. And that's where what can make it, again, the Dagwood sandwich, not just for an actor, but a show that has different things to different people.
Right.
It's an escape. It's socially relevant. It's about climate change.
It's a murder mystery.
It's about the outfits. It's about...
It's
cool.
No, that's great.
Everyone gets to take something different away. Fucking wonderful. Because then it means it's a bigger package than just having one.
Right. One flavor.
Yeah.
I get you.
So I think that's a good
cool.
thing, really.
It's a great palette to work with.
Right?
Yeah. Do whatever you want.
It's a big tapestry.
Yeah.
That was our last question.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, give us a little background on your characters and the motivation behind your characters.
I play Ruth, who works with Melanie Cavill in the hospitality department, and they are responsible for making sure everything runs smoothly on the train, and that's from taking care of first class's many demands, all of their first class demands that they have about how, you know, perfect they need things, to perhaps going into the tail and having to help the police force, the brakemen, whomever, like oversee some disciplinary action or something like that. Ruth really believes in Mr. Wilford and adores him, is a big fan, a big zealot of his. You know, he's saved humanity. He's kept us alive for 7 years. And we're not doing too terribly. We're doing pretty good. So she would follow him to the ends of the earth. Yeah.
I'm a brakeman, Best Hill, and essentially a cop on the train, keeping law and order at the orders of Wilford. And I think Till's motivation, you're introduced to her as a sort of person who is very much going by the rules, and someone who should be who is servicing the ideals of the train, and that slowly starts to change in the course of the show. So I think her motivation starts to shift, actually.
As being involved in this project, has it changed your perspective on what we're seeing unfold now in terms of climate change, in terms of the way that people are responding to climate change, and did that inform your performance in the way that did you channel it at all into the way you interpret the characters?
I mean, I suppose that's something that's very much at the forefront of all of our minds at the moment here at this table, right? And, across the majority of the world, this is a position that we could very well shortly be in. It's not that much of a stretch, and it's not a fantasy situation anymore where we are. Our story is just one possible result of what could happen if we don't do anything to fix it.
I think many ways we're living out actually what we see in the train, which is an allegory of what is happening right now. We have class warfare, we have immigration problems, we have diminishing resources, we have severe climate. This is not...
We have a healthy 1%.
We have a healthy 1%. This is not a futuristic, sci-fi. It's a cli-fi. It's climate fiction. But I don't know. I think we're here, and this is a show that really shows that and shows the humanity in people, and also the cruelty in people, and the interconnectedness of everything. I mean, it's a really good show.
And what you have to do to survive. If you want to survive, you have to do something.
Where do you think your characters pull their strength from to make decisions, even if they're against their own moral thoughts? And where do they draw that line between making that decision or doing right for all of the passengers on the train?
Really good question.
You got something you're going to lose your train of thought? Or?
No, I need a moment.
I would say for Ruth, she is always looking at the bigger picture of what needs to be done for the train. There is a finite amount of resources. They can't look after 1 million people on the train. They can look after the 3,000 or so that was supposed to be on the train, and that they've accounted for, and that they've proven that they can have enough food for, enough heat, enough light, water, all of those things. If you've got all these extra people that just shove their way onto the train at departure, that throws everything out of balance and everything out of whack, and someone's going to have to suffer. Someone's going to have to make up for that deficit now that we've lost all these people in the tail. So I think Ruth is really doing what she thinks is right, and trusts in Mr. Wilford that he's done the math, he's done the science to figure out how we all stay alive. That's what we're all just trying to stay alive inside of this train, right? So she hasn't had to do anything that is not in line with her morals and values and how she sees the world.
I think when we meet Tess, I don't even know my name.
Tess. Oh, that's right.
Man, Tess. It's Bass.
Tess Bill.
Bass Till. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Because you're in a position of authority,
I
so making that decision.
but I'm also under authority. Okay. So I'm in this position of, and I think that when we meet her, she has lost her way and lost her true sense of what is right, and it is through the situations that Graeme puts her in, she is like forced to really come to terms with her choices and her actions and like who she really is and like what does she really stand for.
Yeah. Is there a sense for your characters you think of looking forward beyond whenever the journey ends, whenever the train gets to a point where the world gets to a point where it's safe enough to stop the train, whatever?
Well, I don't know that any of the characters think that that's going to happen. I mean, it could be a hopeful fantasy, but everyone has to have their place on the train, right? There are very few people. There are some in third class, I think. Well, it depends. Sort of trains that maybe get to sort of exist, but for the most part, you have to have a purpose on the train. You have to be doing something. You have to maybe do a job that you wouldn't want to do and do things that you don't want to do because you have to earn your keep on there. You have to find your place in this new society, like it or not. But I don't know how far thinking ahead would help.
There's also like a real like understanding within the train that if the train stops, we're all dead because it's so full. Like and that this like perpetual movement is vital to survival. So yeah, no one is thinking about getting off and stopping. It's sort of like this is the path we're on.
And we must keep the train running, otherwise we all die. So we must do whatever it takes to keep the train running, otherwise we all die.
That sounds very in character. Did you guys have a favorite set? During the panel, everyone was talking about the elaborateness.
Multiple. Yeah, I would have at least 4, I think, that they're all so beautiful to explore and to walk through and so detailed. They've done a phenomenal job, the production designers. It's just gorgeous. Multiple favorite sets.
There's a pretty exciting sub-train, train within a train, which I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about.
Is that it now?
Making note of that. And thank you very much.
So I have a question. I asked about sets for Graeme. I asked about sets.
I thought you said
and
well, we could ask that. We only got 5 minutes left. We're losing time.
Something about a train within a train came up?
Subtrain.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is the train is 10 miles long. We need to get characters. It's like, okay, you gotta start walking to the, so there is like down in the subterranean between the wheels, and our train is huge, right? It's like way beyond standard gauge tracks. I think our tracks are 12 feet wide or something. So down between the wheels, sort of the wheel wells, there is a little cart, sort of that transports up and down. A little cable car that can shoot you all the way from one end of the train to the other, and you can go sneak around down there.
Quick question: we were talking about the show. It's bleak. It's not happy. It's not sunshine and rainbows and stuff like that. But putting this together, you don't want to depress the audience. Like, I'm gonna go put my head in the oven. It's over. Is that the hard part to go and try to find some humor and some brightness and some hope? Every week, like, yes, we know it's desolate, we know it's depressing, but they're still surviving, they're still going on every day. So is that the challenge, is producing this, to keep it upbeat somehow?
It's certainly something to keep in mind, but it's not so much of a challenge because it's a real mashup of tones.
Okay.
So it allows a lot of black humor in it, and there's some pretty funny people here.
Yeah.
So there are some characters that are more comedic, like Stephen Ogg.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you said that, I go,
Stephen Ogg and Mike O'Malley is in as well, and he's very funny. What do you say to that?
It's still a very colorful world. I think it's very vibrant because of everything is on the extreme mode. Like the stakes are at the highest point, and so I think that some of these funnier characters bring some light to it. But I also think the world is just colorful, and but it is about the end of the world. It is a bunch of
it's like
lost.
It's not a laugh riot.
Yeah, but for me, I just think it's ripe for really good drama. It's we don't shy away from that, and what it drives you to be, to have lost everything.
And even looking out the train window at a destroyed world, there are moments when the characters can look out there and go, God, it's still beautiful.
Really?
It's hilarious.
That's what I said. Bring a tissue, you'll be crying.
The graphic novel came out in 1982, 1983, something like that. And at the time, just the public perception of climate change in general was very, very different than it is now. And I would say that now it's even exponentially greater than it was when the film came out, which was just a few years ago. So how did that feed into the way that you looked at this world compared to the way that people maybe looked at it back in the 1980s?
I think it lights a fire under it. It lit a fire under me to want to tell this story soon. This was a good time for it, because the story of how in the Snowpiercer world how we froze the planet was in an attempt to reverse global warming. And there are plans from several teams to do just that, to launch something reflective into the upper atmosphere, and it's crazy. We're not that good. We're not that smart. It will cascade, and there will be further consequences. It's just we fix our own behavior. We have to. That's why it's imperative to tell this story now. I think it's very important.
Just raise the level of urgency and relevancy like that much more. But the story was always there, and global warming was developing like you said, like it didn't come out of nowhere. It's been here for a while, so it's just. I don't like that it's so relevant, but it does seem like really the right moment.
It's so late.
Yeah.
Inconvenient Truth was what, 20 years ago?
It's crazy.
And then I know this one was a little short, but because they have to get to some more things, and we have time for one more question.
As we dive into each of the characters' backstories and how they're all, how their lives were before the train, are we going to see any more interconnectivity between some of the characters and kind of in their lives before this, were they kind of in each other's lives at some point and somehow?
And let me piggyback on that actually, because your character has a bit more interaction than most of them because of your relationship with Lawton's character.
Yeah.
How did that backstory affect how you came about it and how all the other characters' backstories affect them?
Yeah, it hugely affects my character, just what she had to do to get here, what these 7 years have been like for her. She's gone through a lot of changes, and it's a big part of her because they came together married, and she didn't want really to come on to this person. She wasn't sure about what it meant to survive the end of the world, and just sort of pressured into it. And it's nice because for everybody else it sort of seemed like it's this privilege to be on here, and she's one of the only characters who has a resistance to that. But there's a lot of interaction between different characters, and that's really where we get to start to see what matters to each of these people, what's keeping them going.
And the night car allows us to do these. They're not really flashbacks, really. It's more like abstractions of memory. Mm-hmm. It's a little more abstract than straight flashbacks. But it does allow us to get out of the train and dig deeper into the psychological territory of the characters.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.